Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 100 of Generation GC. Once upon a time, the battle of life and death, the intro track to the Chronicles of Life and Death, Good Charlotte's third album released in 2004. My guest today is Stephanie Doran, once again, and as always, my name is Molly Hudelson. I am your host, as well as the producer, creator, and editor of this podcast. Also, this is episode 100. That's, insane. Last time, we talked about Riot Grrrl from The Young and the Hopeless, and on our next episode, we'll be talking about a song from Good Morning Revival. Stephanie Doran is from the Detroit, Michigan area, and at the time of recording this episode, or this summer, she was working for Live Nation in the box office at the Fillmore, Detroit. Since then, she has actually moved to Los Angeles, and she's now working at venues over there. Stephanie has been listening to GC since 2002, 20 years now, that's awesome, and she started playing guitar because of Good Charlotte. Also, this is episode 100. Again, I can't believe that. It's such a milestone. And if you saw my announcement of this episode, you will see that I actually got to meet up with Stephanie when I was in Los Angeles for Thanksgiving. I had dinner with her and Alyssa Gardner, who was on the show in 2020, talking about California, and it was great. We had so much fun, and I loved getting to hang out with them. If anyone listening is ever in the Philadelphia area on the East Coast, please reach out. Let's meet up. I would love to hang out. Would love to meet everyone. Thank you for your continued listening to and support of Generation GC. I have a few more episodes recorded that I am hoping to release before the end of the year. For anyone that's been following any of my, kind of health and personal updates, I'm still getting pretty regular migraines. They're pretty frequent, but I have just recently started on a preventative medication that should cut down, just how frequent they are and how severe they are. And I do have a good treatment plan for when they do happen now, so I'm able to get back to my normal activities much sooner. It's been a really wild road these past few months, but all signs are pointing towards things evening out in time, which is really exciting. And, as they even out, that means I will be able to hopefully get back to some kind of more regular schedule for this podcast, and we'll kind of just figure out and see what that is. Thank you for listening to this incredible milestone episode, whether this is your first time listening to Generation GC, or you've been with me since the very beginning, or if you're just checking out whatever episodes interest you as they come up. It's so exciting to me that I have been able to release 100 episodes of the podcast, and that people are continuing to enjoy it. I remember when I first did the very first episode on Little Things with Gina Catalano, I numbered the episode as 001, figuring Good Charlotte has over 100 songs, or that there would be well over 100 episodes that I wanted to do between songs and different non-studio recordings and all the things I could do bonus episodes on. And here I am. We're at episode 100, and the first number of every episode is always going to be a 1, or who knows, maybe I'll get to 200 someday. We'll see. It's pretty cool. I am so happy. I'm so proud of myself and so thankful for everyone listening. A few reminders before we go into the episode. First, I love having guests from all around the world and from all different backgrounds on Generation GC. If English isn't your first language, that's okay. As long as you're comfortable holding a conversation in English, you're good to go. And different backgrounds doesn't just mean location or ethnicity. It means ensuring a varied gender and sexuality representation and representing fans of different ages and fans with their own unique life experiences of any sort. So if you're listening to this and you're thinking, hey, I would love to come on Generation GC in 2023, reach out. I would love to have you. I would love to hear your story of how you connect with GC, what GC means to you. There's a lot of episodes left to do, so just get in touch. Finally, Generation GC stickers are here. All you've got to do to get a sticker is support the show on Anchor. Go to anchor.fm/GenerationGCPod and click support. All that money goes right back into making the show the best that it can be. It helps me print and ship the stickers, helps me get equipment that I need, such as a laptop riser, new headphones, and it also helps me with things like paying for Dropbox storage space and backup hard drives, so I can make sure to have backups on backups of everything. So if you do want a sticker, all you've got to do is support the show on Anchor, send me a screenshot of your support as well as your mailing address, and I'll send you stickers. You can reach me at GenerationGCPod on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. You can also email at generationgcpod@gmail.com. Thank you for tuning in, and now on to episode 100.
Okay, so once upon a time, The Battle of Life and Death is track 1 on Chronicles of Life and Death, Good Charlotte's third album released in 2004. Track 2 is the title track, The Chronicles of Life and Death. This song serves as an intro or kind of overture to this album in a way, and it is in Japanese. It's not the only, I didn't even have this in the notes, but there's also a Japanese version of Predictable in existence, but this is the only song on like the main version of the album that is not in English. It's not Good Charlotte's only like intro song though. I do have the quote unquote English version lyrics below. I'm not sure if there was actually like an English version of the song recorded or if this was the translation. The song was written by, the credits I have are Benji Madden and Eric Valentine, but I've also heard that Joel is credited too. Vocals were Michelle Ito and Chikako Hori. I am probably not pronouncing those entirely right, so I apologize, but Michelle and Chikako were also credited with translating the album, the lyrics. I'm really curious how Good Charlotte and Eric Valentine and Epic Records connected with these two women. Because I looked at some of their credits on Discogs and like none of them were artists that I was like, oh yeah, well it would make sense why they'd have a connection. Michelle does not have any other vocal credits listed on Discogs. Her production credits include Steve Gadd Band and Steve Smith. Her management credits include Ken Hire, Lenny White, Tierney Sutton, Steve Gadd Band, and Simon Phillips. Chikako Hori's credits, she has some vocal credits for Twiggy, and there was a Come On, Kickoff Boys / Girls Band collection, instruments credit for Twiggy. Other writing and arrangement credits included Twiggy and the Come On, Kickoff Boys Girls Band collection. Once Upon a Time, The Battle of Life and Death was not a single. Setlist.fm doesn't show that it was ever performed live. And Stephanie, I don't know if you have any of these memories too, or if you can like back this up. But first time I saw GC was May 2005 on the Noise to the World tour, and I remember them playing this song like kind of in the venue before they walked on stage as like their intro, like it played like the speakers of the venue. But I don't think they actually performed it. I mean, this is like, it's like strings. I don't think they actually performed it live.
Yeah, I think if I remember correctly, it may have been the recorded song that played right before they came on, like you said.
Yeah. Which, didn't they do something like that for Generation RX for that tour? Weren't they like playing the intro?
They may have. I honestly don't remember that one as well, even though that was only a few years ago.
I know that there were some like Young and the Hopeless era shows where they played A New Beginning, but that had guitar parts where they could play this song. We'll get into it. It's a little different.
Mm-hmm.
And we have a lot to get into, but Stephanie, I want to help our guests get to know you. So the first question I like to ask everyone is, when did you first hear Good Charlotte and what were your first thoughts on them?
I think the first time I heard Good Charlotte ever was probably on Total Request Live. I probably saw Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous. That's the first time I remember. And I just kind of remember liking the song and thinking it was cool. I remember some of my friends listening to them too, and it was just kind of this new exciting thing. I went to a school where it was a private school, so there weren't a ton of kids, so we all kind of knew each other, and it was I remember it being really fun.
Awesome. How old were you when you first heard GC?
I was in the 8th grade, so like 12 or 13.
Wow. So you're pretty young, but that's like about the age that a lot of us were when we were first getting into GC. 11, 12, 13. Yeah. And the second question I like to ask everyone, and I think I know the answer to this one. I usually do. Have you ever seen Good Charlotte live?
Yes. Yeah, I was there the same day you were, May 13th, 2005. And that was the first time I saw them live. So this was probably like the first song I kind of heard in a live setting, even though they weren't technically playing it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I had like, well, I didn't, it was not May 3rd. I think it was May 25th, 2005 that I saw it in Philly. Was that the one you went to?
No. I'm sorry. I don't know what I was thinking.
It's all good.
I was thinking, yes, it was the same tour, but a different show. I was in Detroit.
Yeah. I think I had even like gone to the bathroom like between Simple Plan and Good Charlotte, and this was like playing, like all foreboding, like coming back to find my dad and my friend. Well, Stephanie, I know you are a big lover of live music. You currently work for Live Nation at the Fillmore Detroit in the box office. Tell me what's like a typical day on the job like for you?
I love it. In the box office. So when I work shows, I come in like an hour or two before doors open, and there's a few different positions there, but I love them all. Like last night I worked a show and I was able to have like a table inside the venue. So you can, I like working that one because you can kind of be there. You can actually hear the music. But I don't even mind scanning tickets, being the first person that people see when they come in the door. People are all excited to go to the show, and I love it. So yeah, I get to be there when people come in, show them where to go sometimes. Then I don't know, we kind of do a whole bunch of things. We work as a team. So I get to talk to people about their favorite bands, the shows that they've been to. Sometimes like the building's, historical building in Detroit. So it's been there for almost 100 years. So people will tell me about about shows that they went to, like when they were younger too. Wow. So it's a lot of fun.
That's pretty cool. I just thought of this question because we have a Fillmore in Philly. And I think there was one like San Francisco. There was one in New York, but that's now called Irving Plaza. Like, are all of the Fillmore venues connected? I know, I think they're all like Live Nation, but I don't know what makes it a Fillmore.
Yeah.
Or is that just a brand?
Yeah, I'm still learning a lot about the business side of it, the high level stuff. But yeah, I believe the first Fillmore was in San Francisco. That's from what I heard, the original, but the building that I work in used to be called the State Theater. So I think when Live Nation bought it, I'd have to double check the year to know exactly when that was, but it was shortly after like I graduated from high school, I think, which was in 2007. So then it became the Fillmore, but I don't think, not all Fillmores are technically Live Nation venues. So I don't know exactly how like the business side comes together.
Now I'd be curious. I think the Fillmore in Philly, I think it was like 2015 that it opened, and like we had it, like when it opened, it was the Fillmore, and then the Foundry was like this small upstairs room, like a couple hundred people, and then the Fillmore is like 2,500. And it was like a big thing when it opened because it was like around the corner from the Barbary, which is like a small little venue. And people were like, well, what's the Barbary going to do with, the Fillmore? And then really the Foundry, like the small room right there. I don't know. Barbary has a lot of like emo nights and stuff now, so they're doing all right. Well, cool. Well, I would love to know, what are some of the best shows you've had that you've gotten to work at the venue?
that I've gotten to work. Bowling for Soup was just there with Les and Jake. I got to peek a little bit at that one. I saw Marina back in, I think it was March or April. That was really fun. Obviously different, but very fun. JoJo was there a few months ago.
Oh, cool.
And I know there's more. I'm just like drawing a blank.
Sure.
But yeah, there's been lots of good shows. I've been working there since January, and I've seen like tons more shows this year than I've ever seen in my life. So
that's awesome. I think it was, didn't we have a Zoom like around then and you told us you had started the job or something? Yeah. Amazing. Well, I hear you also play guitar. Do you play acoustic, electric? What's your vibe?
I play both. I have mostly gotten out of the practice of playing guitar, but I kind of got back into it like in the last year. So I started playing probably when I started listening to Good Charlotte. And
I said a lot of that. I.
Yeah. So yeah, I have an acoustic and an electric. I bought a bass last year too. So I'm just trying to learn a whole bunch of new stuff.
That's awesome. Are you jamming GC? Like what kind of stuff are you jamming?
I do sometimes. Yeah. I think when I got my bass last year, I did hunt down some like little things, bass tabs, and
Let Me Go would be the other one.
Yeah.
For bass for sure.
Right. Yeah. And definitely when I first started playing guitar, I learned a bunch of Good Charlotte songs. And I remember my teacher that I had when I took lessons, wasn't like the biggest Good Charlotte fan, but there were definitely some songs from this same album, from the Chronicles of Life and Death, that he liked, especially after hearing Young and the Hopeless. Like I could definitely tell, even as, a novice musician like myself, I could tell he was like impressed by Chronicles. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm curious because I had also taken guitar lessons for a bit. And like I honestly like part of the reason I found it hard to stick with was like my teacher was not teaching me stuff that I was interested in. He was teaching me stuff that like I didn't even know most of these songs. What kind of, outside of, Chronicles, what kind of stuff does your teacher listen to? Is your teacher trying to show you?
He loved the Grateful Dead. But he didn't make me play the Grateful Dead. I just remember the posters. But he was pretty well rounded. I think I remember he had some of those. I don't remember what they're called, like the title, but I see them whenever I go into like music stores. They're like really thick books of guitar tabs, and they'll have like a ton of top 40 from the last, like 50 years or something. Like, so he had a couple of those, and I would pick out of those. I would play like Oasis, Foo Fighters. There were definitely some songs that I'd never really heard of, but I feel like there was a good mix of him like trying to show me things that like I needed to know, even though it wasn't my favorite.
To like
thing.
Learn the techniques.
Right. And plus I was I was a 13-year-old. So like my taste in music was not very wide. Like, I'd only heard so much.
Right.
So there's wait,
you mean there's other bands besides Good Charlotte?
What? No way. So it's important to branch out and try new things, obviously. And I think it was pretty good. I only ever remember really like one song that he wanted me to play, and that I ended up like within a week or two, I think he just could tell that I just really didn't like it. And he was just like, well, never mind, we'll just like move on.
There you go.
But, yeah.
Very nice. Well, Stephanie, love hearing all about your experience playing guitar, learning lots of different techniques and styles. We could talk about that for a while, but I really want to dive into Once Upon a Time, Battle, Life, and Death. We had connected a while ago. I think on Twitter we first connected. Like, I want to say it might even been end of last year, or if not before that. What sticks out to you about Once Upon a Time, the Battle of Life and Death?
I love this song because of the strings. I love it because I love this album, and because it really, I was thinking about it yesterday. I tried to listen to the whole album yesterday a couple times just to refresh my memory. And it just, it's such a good, like, package. Like, it's almost like, I don't think it's technically concept album, but it's like it kind
of is.
It's such a compact thing. I don't know how to, it's its own like world. And I love that the beginning of it meshes up with the end of it, that like, musically and lyrically. I love the like full circle concept of it.
Yeah. You're wearing a Green Day shirt, which makes me think of, obviously, American Idiot, which came out, I think, right around the same time that this did. And that was very clearly a concept album. Like, there was, a character, a story, a thing. And this was like a little looser in concept. Like, I didn't really perceive a story, but there was definitely like a concept, like a theme, which is life and death.
Yeah.
And I should have pulled some of these quotes for this because it will be relevant, but like, I remember an interview, this was done like years later, years after the album had come out, where Joel talked about how it was like, life and death, but also kind of like life and death in the music industry, and just the absolute grind they were under to produce this album after like intense touring from the Young and the Hopeless. Like, that just blew up.
Yeah.
And then intense touring, and they put this out, like, and I remember, I wish I had this quote, because I know because I had like cited this in another episode, but I remember him even saying that like the label wanted them to do something like poppier and lighter for this album, and they didn't.
I can only imagine. I mean, it just makes sense that after The Young and the Hopeless blew up, like, that would just make you start thinking about all these concepts and how like, this is what I wanted, but like, oh my God, this is what I wanted. Like, just that if like when you get somewhere, when you arrive somewhere, that means like you have to go, like, what's next, and all the things that, like, weird feelings that must bring up, especially so quickly when you don't really have any time to process.
Right. It was like crazy touring, and then pretty much going right to make some, just pretty insane. Let's zero in on this song, Once Upon a Time, the Battle of Life and Death. What do you think this song is about? What are they trying to say with this song specifically?
With the lyrics. I was thinking about this yesterday, and it's kind of funny. Like, I took in college, like, one semester of Japanese.
Okay.
But I don't remember any of it. And I literally failed. So
I wanted to learn Japanese because like, Benji spoke Japanese and then some Japanese, whatever, but my high school and college did not offer it.
I kicked myself because it was a semester I just took on like too much and too many language classes, and I should have like done something different, but whatever, live and learn, I guess. I was looking up that word vampire, like, because I was like, that's really interesting. I wonder if like in translation, how that, like,
if it might have got like mixed up in translation.
Yeah. I mean, not necessarily like mixed up, because the concept is probably the same, but it's just, I've never thought of a Japanese vampire. So like, it must culturally, like, it would be interesting to hear somebody who actually knows about Japanese culture talk about it, but I think the lyrics are like super straightforward, but they really lay out like the whole album in like this really simple, beautiful way.
Yeah. Like life and death are like an eternal cycle. That's what I wrote down. I just had a thought as you're talking about vampires, like in a way. And to be honest, like the lyrics for this song are, yes, they're in Japanese, but translated into English, they're incredibly simple. So we're probably like reading way more into this than even was put into this. Vampires like live forever, but it's like a half life. Like, I don't know if you read Twilight, but like, Edward, you know, Bella would say, I guess Twilight spoilers for anyone who hasn't read it in the year 2022, but like plans to read it. Right. You know, maybe skip ahead a few minutes, but like Bella wants Edward to make her a vampire. Edward doesn't, because he's essentially like, I don't want to doom you to this like cursed half-life that you just like can't really ever escape. Right. So it's like the vampire lives forever, but is it really life? That's like, I guess you could say kind of symbolic of, you know, life and death and this. I don't know. Well, why is it a battle?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. I mean, I kind of remember, this just makes me think of, remember when they would post blogs on the website. I remember Benji talking about Anne Rice. And so when I hear this now, I kind of associate it with Anne Rice a little bit, just like randomly. So yeah, I haven't read most of the Anne Rice books, but I do remember a lot about being a vampire being like really shitty. Them talking about, you know, those are like really big books where I'm trying to think of some, I didn't look this up before the show, so I don't know. Like, I think it has something to do with the, like I looked up the Japanese version of vampire and it said, translated, like one suggestion was like bloodsucker or something like that. And I'm wondering, it makes me think of like feeding energy off of other people too. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like kind of feeling like drained.
I mean, and there's the term energy vampire or whatever, emotional vampire for someone who just like sucks all the positive emotion out of the situation. Yeah. Or you know, that your job could be like a vampire and suck everything out of you.
Yeah. So it's like there's this, maybe if it was a concept album, that would be like the villain.
Yeah. But vampires don't really appear anywhere else on the album, do they?
No, but there are like when I looked up, let's see, in popular folklore, an undead being in human form. Yeah, I think it's just translating like vampire. And the second definition was a person such as an extortionist who takes advantage of others for personal gain. And I was like, okay, well, that kind of sounds like the in this world, like some of the
that's
in there.
Sure. Okay. That's
a different kind of vampire, but it's sort of the same concept.
Yeah. I like that a lot. I think, I like that a lot. One thing I want to mention just specifically about the song, I want to get into kind of like arrangement of the song and genre a little bit, like ponder on that. I had to listen to this a few times. So there's like a beep of a heart rate monitor so I've been listening to it on Spotify, and I feel like the like split between the tracks might have been a little different on CD, but I don't even know because it's been a long time since I've listened to it on CD because I haven't had a CD player in so many years. But there's a beep that sounds like a heart rate monitor at like the very end of this song that goes into the beginning of the title track.
Yes.
It's just kind of, it's very symbolic.
I love
and I'm
it.
kind of surprised they didn't bring that back at the very end of the album.
Yeah.
That would be like at the end of Wounded or something. That would be pretty cool.
Yeah, that would be. I love the that is one kind of thing that I kind of miss about CDs is like, I guess you still get them with albums, but like when I'm listening to Spotify or whatever, is the like, I can still, I know it wasn't just Good Charlotte that did this. So it was a pretty popular thing that for the song to kind of bleed into the next track.
Yeah.
And it's Good Charlotte did that a lot though, even on their self-titled album. I remember some of this stuff.
Yeah.
Overlapping.
Young and the Hopeless too. Like,
mm-hmm.
I don't know. I think there's something so important to be said about like the order of an album and like what can really come from listening to an album in order, like start to finish.
Mm-hmm.
Just gives, I feel like it gives context. And I'm sure there are people nowadays who just honestly don't pay as much attention to that because a lot of people just don't do that anymore, which I understand, you know. I often like to, especially if I'm like if I'm listening to an album, like to kind of get ready for an episode of this podcast, I'll usually listen to it in order. But if I'm just listening to something that I like, I might just throw it on shuffle, you know?
Yeah. I agree. I mean, there are some, it's definitely all about the songs now separately. I think for a lot of bands and in the industry in general, I guess, but there's definitely something to be said about listening to. Most of the artists that I listen to talk about it that way, like when they're creating the music, like it's supposed to be this way, but there's pushback from, you know, like labels, radio stations, I guess.
Yeah.
Everyone else. I don't know. It's like one of those, I wonder if it's one of those cultural things where we like talk about it this way, but like really people want it simple. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like there's arguments for, you know, making an album that like tells a story from start to finish. And there's also arguments for making an album and placing like, you know, your 2 or 3 best songs at the beginning and then but also putting like a banger at the end so people listen through and get to the banger.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of this song specifically though, like we talked about a lot of strings. What genre would you put on this song?
I think I would agree something like goth would work for it, especially when I think about the other songs that were popular in some of the other bands and things that were popular at the time. I think it fits really well. I guess that's what I would say. And I don't know how else to explain it other than it's strings. It's like then loud guitars and that just seems to be the best fit for me.
Yeah. I like goth, but like specifically more than anything, like this to me sounds like a movie score. Like A New Beginning sort of did. Definitely like somewhat, but then it kind of turns into this like punk rock jam. This to me, like start to finish, sounds like a Tim Burton movie score, you know, done by Danny Elfman, which as we talked about on the episode about A New Beginning was like directly inspired by Danny Elfman's scores. And I imagine this was too. And when we get into some of the like fan comments and a bit, people had a lot of really fun comparisons, like what they think, what movies and such that this makes them think of. So I'm really excited to get into that.
Yeah, that makes sense. I definitely agree. I mean, a lot of the album sounds a lot like a movie. Like when I thought about, like I was trying to think of like tag words, I guess, if I was going to describe this song yesterday. And I was thinking it, like the words that I was using sounded like a movie. Like I was like moody, what other word? Brooding. Like
brooding. That's good. Yeah.
Like a, you know, dark drama.
I kept coming up with foreboding. That's the word. Foreboding and eerie, but those were kind of the big ones for me.
Those are good. Yeah. Those work a lot too.
Thanks. Let's get into the lyrics. So I am not going to attempt to read the Japanese lyrics because I know I'm not going to get the pronunciation correct. I have the English version lyrics per genius.com. And then I also translated the lyrics, like the Japanese kanji, the Japanese characters, to English on Google Translate. They're honestly pretty similar. So, but, you know, at first I was like, let's do this because, oh, well, who knows how accurate their translation was? Mm-hmm. Well, they had, who I believe, based on names, although I don't know for sure, but the names sound Japanese, had 2 Japanese speakers working to translate the song. Again, I don't know for if these ones speak Japanese, so I'm making an assumption based on, you know, names that seem Japanese. I'm guessing they're, you know, pretty native speakers. So the English lyrics on genius.com say life, 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 death, 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 life, 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 death, death, death. Life and death, to be born is to die. Life and death, to be born is to die. The vampire lives eternally, for it was promised so. Life and death, to be born is to die. Life and death, to be born is to die. Eternal death. Life and death, death is beautiful, beautiful. Life and death, death is beautiful, beautiful. Life and death, life is beautiful, beautiful. The vampire lives eternally, for it was promised so. Okay, and then Google Translate, translate the Japanese characters to English. Life, 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 die, die, die. Life, 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 die, die, die. Birth and death, birth and death, birth and death, birth and death. Vampires promise to live forever. So the only change, I'm not going to even go through the whole thing. The only difference, it seems, is some of the verb forms, like death versus die, birth versus life, or to be born, and that kind of stuff very easily can get kind of lost in translation on Google Translate, just from different languages have different, oh my God, why can't I remember, like syntax, right? Syntax and verb forms, and some languages just do not have certain verb forms that we may have in English. So the translation looks pretty good from my, you know, basic Google Translate check. Although I don't know if they ever like officially released English lyrics to this.
I don't think so. I had something like this genius translation that you have. I'm pretty sure I had that like printed out on my wall at some point.
Yeah.
So it must have been pretty easy to find, or we were both on the same message board that posted it. I don't know. But I really think it's interesting. I had seen that first one, but I hadn't seen, I mean, obviously you did this yourself, so that's why I didn't see it somewhere, but the verb, I don't know if it's conjugation, I guess.
Yes, conjugation, that's the word.
Yes.
It's been a while since I took a language class. So.
Yeah, but it does really change the perspective. I mean, it's obviously, you're right, it's a good translation. Like it's the same thing, but the idea,
like birth as an event versus life as a experience. Death as an event versus an experience. Yeah. Right.
Or
we're definitely reading action. More into this than they looked into writing.
Is like an actionable thing though, right?
Like, right. Like an action, an event.
It's something that you're actually doing as opposed to something that you talk about.
Right.
Interesting.
Yeah.
It does change it.
Yeah. In terms of backstory for this song, I didn't really find much. a few commenters mentioned some things that they knew or they read in interviews, so we will read those. But that's, not like firsthand. I'm taking all of those facts with like a big grain of salt. Stephanie, do you have like any other memories or stories that you want to share about Once Upon a Time, the Battle of Life and Death?
No, I don't think so. No, that's pretty much it.
Cool. I just remember this song and also the predictable Japanese version, and just seeing how much they toured Japan, making me want to learn Japanese, which I never made any actual moves on. You mentioned this song made you think of In This World, Murder. Any other songs that come up when you think of like what this might relate to? I mean, basically this whole album is one, but I don't know. I need some like any other albums that come to mind for you.
Any other albums that?
Any other like songs from other GC albums that either have a similar vibe or similar themes to this that you can think of?
I was thinking yesterday, and again about the lyrics, and the vampire thing kind of made me think of some of the Gen G or Generation RX, like Shadow Boxer, and there's some demon, references.
Okay, yeah. Like the demon is the vampire, like your battle. Okay, I like that. That's a good. I like that. And a lot of people, myself included, kind of flash back to this album when talking about Gen RX because there's strings and stuff. Well, I want to get into some responses to this album. I will say a lot of critics either didn't have much to say about this song. A lot of critics just didn't mention this song at all, which, in my personal opinion, it is a big mistake not to mention an intro, because if a band puts an intro on an album, there's usually like a reason.
Yeah.
But I'm not every critic. Every critic has their own opinion. And of the people who did mention this song, a lot of them just, said orchestral or Japanese intro without much else. The first, we do have a few reviews to read though. The first is from IGN. And this whole review, I'll probably skip around a bit, but the whole review is just something else. So I got to give some context. It very much seems to be written by someone with like a mission to describe just how bad it is. But even a little bit getting away from the music itself to like, this is bad. I just need to say it's bad. It's yeah. Well, I'll read it in a second, but I have to say the subheader of this review is Good Charlotte, Bad Album, which is honestly, that's pretty good. I like that better than Bad Charlotte, which we've heard on multiple reviews over the years. There are many music fans out there, however, who approach every new band with the mindset that it could quickly become a favorite. It was with this sense of hope that I eagerly slid Chronicles into my stereo and hit play. 40 minutes later, I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. I only knew what to say. A group of people armed with a pen and a few instruments would have to actually try to create something this unapologetically bad. I said that to anyone who would listen. Then I drove a sledgehammer through my stereo and slept for 2 days. Where do I begin? How about the beginning, which kicks off with Once Upon a Time, the Battle of Life and Death, an instrumental track overlaid by sinister chanting vocals. The first-time listener is liable to believe, judging from the goth-like nature of this piece alone, that he or she just stepped on board the heart-pounding, soul-stabbing, eye-gouging, freezing black grip of Death Train. This is actually either a poorly planned bait-and-switch tactic or the build-up to a monumental punchline. As soon as the creepy chanting dies down, Good Charlotte launches into a pop-soaked carnival that makes Simple Plan sound like White Zombie. The transition from the first track to the second will make you bust out laughing. Not a good sign, then you'll realize that you're $15 in the red and the laughing will stop.
$15 in the red, that's cute.
Yeah. I don't know. We're both like making faces. This is like every once in a while I'm like, I wish I should just do video episodes, because Stephanie and I are both like making faces as I've been reading this.
Yeah, that's interesting. I remember, I mean, I think a lot of people just have their own opinions before they even listen to it, and they say that they listen to it with an open mind, but we all know there's no such thing as objectivity. So
yeah, I get the vibe this person like listened to it once and then was like, this is bad, let me like go on a tirade about how bad it is.
Yeah.
The next review we'll read is from Space City Rock, and they had some criticisms about how they approached death. And I actually thought that was a pretty well thought out review. I don't know if I like agree with it entirely, but I actually thought this was like had some good stuff to say. With their latest, I'm going to skip around. I might skip around a bit because it's also pretty long. With their latest album, The Chronicles of Life and Death, teen hero pop punkers Good Charlotte have jumped feet first into the realm of a concept album. At first glance, they may not seem like the likeliest candidates for deep, album-length ruminations on life, suffering, loss, death, and love, but really, if you think about it, what the hell else is teenage poetry written about? From that standpoint, Chronicles makes perfect sense, and sure enough, the majority of the songs are bleak, desperate, and melancholy, even when the music's cheery. Charlatteers, Joel and Benji Madden, Paul Thomas, Billy Martin, and Chris Wilson may well have succeeded in capturing the essence of the stereotypical angst-ridden depressive teenager right down to the cartoonish graphics of the album cover. That very teenagerness, however, can work against the album if, say, you happen to be listening as an adult. What sounds deep and meaningful when you're 15 and probably haven't experienced much in the way of real loss tends to sound pretty ridiculous when you're 32, like me. For all their singing about life and death, the Maddens and company don't ever really capture the essence of what it's like to cope with death or confront your own mortality. And that's not too surprising because it's damn hard to do. I've only encountered a few songs in my musical life that really, truly grasp the despair and helplessness of death. Peter Gabriel's No Way Out is the only one that comes to mind right now. So unfortunately, there's a cartoonishness to the actual songs on Chronicle, as well as the artwork. This is no philosophical treatise. How could it be? But rather an epic life versus death struggle as viewed through the eyes of the PlayStation generation. Heck, the intro track to the album, Once Upon a Time, The Battle of Life and Death, even starts off anime style with a delicately plucked guitar and chant singing in what sounds like Japanese.
Well, it is in fact Japanese. So
yeah, right. right.
Yeah, I mean, that is a lot more well thought out.
Yeah.
I am also 32.
Yeah. I will be 31 in 9 days. I had to just like turn and look at my calendar and like count. But like you were, I was 13 when this album came out. You probably would have been 14, 15, So I do like, as I was reading this, I do think like, what if we were this age when we heard this for the first time? What our experience of it have been.
Yeah. And I don't know. I mean, I think I think I still love pop music, and I think sometimes that's what people get a little like put off by is that Good Charlotte's like they talk about these serious things, but it's pop music unapologetically. So I don't know if
right. The comments from the beginning of like, we want to be like Minor Threat mixed with the Backstreet Boys. Like we want to be really big and famous. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think a lot of people are just kind of put off by the juxtaposition of, classical or not classical, but instrumental music, or that's not the word, orchestral music, with a pop punk chorus or whatever. So, I mean, I don't know. I do, in some ways. I mean, Benji and Joel were what, like 25 when they made this album?
Yes. Yeah, I was thinking about that. They would have been 25 when it came out. So
they weren't even 32, which I guess is the
right.
wise old age of the whatever. I don't know. I mean, I'll probably.
I wish people could see me like rolling my eyes right now. Like, oh yeah, you're 32 years old. What?
I'm like I said, I'm 32. I'm sure in another 30 years, like I'll listen to this again and it'll mean something different to me. But I don't think it takes away from the topic at hand, which is that we're all just trying to figure out how to make it through the world and live with the fact that we're going to die one day, and it's hard to accept.
Yeah. And without, I want to, stop and make sure we don't psychoanalyze this too much, but reading this, especially reading it again, I'm like, I almost wonder if the person who wrote this review had like recently suffered a loss or a near-death experience or something, and who knows? We have no way of knowing. I want to read some fan comments there was a fan upload by Good Charlotte Songs on YouTube. So we'll read some YouTube comments. Feldy Arts said, I was a weird kid believing that this song could drive away the clouds in a rainstorm. Maybe every time I listen to this, I just simply have the perfect timing. Rediscovering this album brought me back quite a bit. Damn, I feel old. Deadly Artifact said, the second half just blew my mind. Hearing that sound is so nostalgic. Gotta love it. Vampire 72345 said, my gym class played music really loudly when I was younger, and they played this song. When it got to the louder part, all of the girls ran and hid behind a door, except for me and my friend, who stood there laughing. This is a good one. And remember, this comment, I wish I had written down when this was, but this was like many, many years ago. Kathy 32 said, awesome. Love this song. I love the lyric about the vampire. Reminds me of a book, Twilight by Stephanie Meyer.
That's fair. Yeah.
Yeah. FL said, best thing they have ever made. Beautiful and epic. Kishin 19 said, I still remember all of the Japanese despite not having heard this song in over 5 years. Thumbs up for great music that brings back your childhood. Shelnick said, I don't know why, but always reminded me of Harry Potter. Someone else mentioned specifically like the Harry Potter games music, which I never played the video games, but I believe it. I could see this as like a Harry Potter vibe too, like Forbidden Forest or something. Mm-hmm. C. Huggins said, I remember being a child, like maybe 5, and loving this song. I didn't know what it was called. It just made me think of the boat in Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. Oh, you've seen that? Have you seen the Gene Wilder version?
Yes.
Yeah, like the creepy boat ride.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, mm-hmm. I like this. Of course, my sister and I called it the Oompa Loompa song. But yeah, I was a weird kid. Like, why did I like this? It's so great, but why? Unfeeling Ghost said, with the global pandemic, this song is even more relevant than before. Facts. Fasa Kutia, I don't think I'm pronouncing that right, said, it always reminded me of Coraline, which I haven't seen, but I mean, that's Tim Burton, so not sure.
Coraline, that's fair.
Yeah. Domestic Cat said, so GC made an album about life and death in 2004, and the first song is in Japanese. In other words, they predicted MCR's next 2 albums. You know, very early on, I think this was episode 10, I had my friend Joel Funk on the show to talk about My Bloody Valentine, and he had this specific theory that like that song specifically like kind of paved the way for bands like My Chem to be really mainstream. And then this album and everything, but
yeah, I just looked up technically the Twilight books came out in 2005. So
okay. So shortly after this album, yeah.
Yeah.
I was gonna say it's around then, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I remember reading some vampire books before Twilight. And so, I mean, it was even the Twilight books obviously were the most popular of a genre, but I think it started before Twilight. The popularity of vampires, but yeah, I think that there was a lot going on that would like in the arts and in pop culture that this album and including the intro track really like I was thinking about some of the songs like bands like I remember AFI being on MTV a lot then, and a lot of their popular songs. There was like a band called Him, I think.
Yes, with like the pentagram logo. Yeah.
And what else did this remind me of? I thought about My Chem too. And yeah, I mean, really before that, I mean, maybe it's just because I was young. I don't remember a lot of that.
Right. When you're young, you're just not very in tuned to everything.
Mm-hmm.
I think Twilight was like arguably the biggest vampire series of like our adolescence.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Anyway. 2 more comments from YouTube that mentioned this song should be in a Final Fantasy game. That was Jason Otterly. And then Carol Pippa said, I want this song playing at the background when Gran Turismo announces Porsches. I want to read some comments from songmeetings.com. There was a lot of debate in the comments section. It's like so nostalgic, always going into the comments on songmeetings.com because there's often a lot of debate, and there was a lot of debate for this song, specifically centering around whether it was in Latin or Japanese.
I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah. And there was mixed opinions about this song in general. I'm not sure said, "Hoo boy, since when did these new age monkeys up and decide that they were Tim Burton? This is an embarrassment to music as a whole." Good Charlotte Punk 27 said, I thought it was Japanese too, but the song rocks. I was always wondering what they were saying. And by the way, Tim Burton rocks. So does Good Charlotte. Claire Patra said, vampires live forever. Well, isn't that a great thing to be singing about? Not, honestly. ... I Love Maroon 5 said, I love this song. It sounds cool. I like the singing, but it is music that I really love. I really liked the first song on their second CD too. Good Charlotte rocks. Yumeko said, first off, even if you don't know what Japanese sounds like, this is clearly not Latin. LOL. I don't know. I don't speak Latin. I've never heard anybody speak Latin. So I wouldn't know what Latin sounds like.
I mean, it's probably just it's a more popular, like again, when you hear something that sounds kind of goth, you like, at least in America anyway, today, you kind of associate, or you're going to like look for Latin because it's a popular like thing to associate.
Right.
But I think when I first heard it, like when it first came out, I was in high school and I was taking French, so I heard French. But
okay.
But once I actually listened to it a little better, I was like, okay, that doesn't sound like anything that I've ever heard in French, so it's probably not French.
Maybe people were just taking Latin.
We just kind of hear what we're familiar with, and we don't hear a lot of Japanese, especially as teenagers. And
exactly. Yumeko went on to say, this track is good. I have more respect for Good Charlotte after hearing this track, and I can't stop listening to it. Yeah. Broken said, bloody weird song, but Japanese is cool. Killing Spree said, WTF, they made a song by having 10 different words repeated over and over, and including about vampires. GC is so cool, he said, well, it's not the vampire lives eternally, it was promised. It was the vampire, you live, eternally, it is beautiful. This song was written by Benji and Joel, who know quite some bit of Japanese. And here's a quote from Billy Martin. Some of the stuff they're saying in the song is just funny things Benji and Joel made up and had translated into Japanese pretty well. He's been studying for a couple of years. So they are saying first comes life, then comes death, and then there's some stuff about vampires. None of it makes sense. So I have no idea the source of this quote or if this quote is real at all. None, because I don't know where this came from. It could have been a TV interview. It could have been something from I don't know the source. So I have no idea if this is real. It is, but this is some possible context to the background of this song.
Yeah, I mean, I thought that as well. Honestly, I think ever since I was in high school and I was reading some biography of a songwriter and they talked about how things were random, I always wonder that when I'm listening to a song, of how like purposeful the how much purpose the writer was like putting into it. But I don't think it's completely random. I mean, maybe it doesn't sound like, based on the context of the rest of the album, I don't think it's, I mean, it's simple, but it's not like
life,
random.
Death,
yeah.
Life, death. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
It's not like they were just like, oh, let's put some Japanese words in the song. Like,
right. And it's not even like, lots of like poetry and prose in Japanese. It's like basically like 2 sentences.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah.
We'll read a few more comments and then we'll wrap things up. Zombie Queen said, am I the only person that thinks of the movie The Corpse Bride when I hear this? BTW, that's not a bad thing. LOL. I haven't seen Corpse Bride, but another Tim Burton. So, and Corpse Bride and Coraline were actually both mentioned multiple times across comment sections.
Mm-hmm.
Crispy 002 said, well, anyway, this song set the wonderful scene for the album. I always picture a spirit being laid into the cells, forming a newborn in the womb, and a fierce battle between life and death as to whether or not it makes it. Life obviously triumphs in the end, seeing as the monitor can be heard detecting a heartbeat, but it seems like life only just made it. Then the whole album is about someone's life in general, and the last song is like the reversal of this one, concluding this person's life and maybe them stepping into the light or something dramatic. I'm curious what they mean by the last song of the album. Because there's, I guess, like, do they mean wounded? Do they mean in this world murder? Do they mean falling away or meet my maker?
I feel like they probably mean in this world, but that's just my opinion. I would think of that as the last song and then the rest of them as bonus tracks. But I mean, obviously,
when I hear like stepping into the light, I mean, meet my maker.
Oh no, you're right. That makes sense.
But then wounded follows that. So I don't know.
But wounded, I mean, was more of a hidden track. So I guess I could see meet my maker. Maybe they are talking about that one.
Yeah.
I guess. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. This has been a fun discussion, Stephanie. Thank you for coming on the show. How has Once Upon a Time, The Battle of Life and Death held up for you over time?
I think that how has it held up? I mean, when I listen to it, there's a lot of nostalgia, like some of the commenters said. I mean, I still like to listen to it. I think it's a really good arrangement. I don't listen to like a lot of orchestral music, but I do listen to some, and I enjoy listening to it. Like I said at the beginning, I really love the whole album, and I love how conceptual the first track and then how it connects to In This World, like sonically. Yeah, I don't know what else to say.
Yeah. Yeah, this is great. I love specifically that you mentioned the connection to In This World. And I want to go back and like listen to the album with that in mind. I'm excited to do that. I was just thinking as you were talking about orchestral music, I wish we could have Ashley Godfrey on to just chat a little bit about the strings, because she's been playing violin for like 20 years. And I'm sure she would have something to say about this. So anyway, Ashley Godfrey, if you're listening, hello, how are you? Stephanie, what has Good Charlotte meant to you over the years, and how has that changed?
Let's see. I mean, I think when I first heard them, like I said at the beginning, like I said, it was popular. Like they were on TRL, and my age, everything just kind of made sense. But then as things like changed and I got older, starting high school and doing a lot of things that they talked about in the music, and learning about new music, it really all just kind of stemmed from Good Charlotte. So like most of the, like a lot of the bands that I listened to were recommended or had worked with Good Charlotte or something. There are a lot of even things that like I wouldn't have expected to connect back to Good Charlotte ended up connecting back to Good Charlotte in some way.
What do you mean?
Like trying to think of a good example. Like I might have heard about something from a friend and then heard like Joel tweet about, or not heard, but saw Joel tweet about it or something. And I'm like, oh, okay. So there's like a connection. So like, and then they just got me, it's like I don't know, like an anchor of my passion for music. So
I love, that's an anchor for your passion for music. That is such a great way to put it. I love that.
Thanks.
Welcome. Stephanie, do you have any last words about Once Upon a Time, about Good Charlotte, or about yourself?
Any other what?
Any last words, just anything else you want to make sure you add in here?
Oh, no, I'm really happy to be here. I was really excited you asked me to be on here for this song and in the 100th episode. So
yes, I know we'll
Thank
have to. You're welcome. Thank you for coming on, Stephanie. I was very happy when I realized this was episode 100. That's a very big milestone. It means I have talked about Good Charlotte on the internet for 100 hours. Although really that's like, downplaying it drastically, right? This is a lot of fun. Thank you again for coming on. So I do have a Generation GC and Friends Spotify playlist, and I'm going to put on this song. And I would also love to know a recommendation from you, just anything you're listening to lately that's not Good Charlotte.
Like a specific song?
Yeah.
I would say Lights, Salt and Vinegar.
Okay. I'll add that. Thank you, Stephanie. Well, if anyone wants to keep up with you, what's your social media? Where can they find you?
I'm on Twitter, Stephanie Doran 3.
Amazing. Thank you again, Stephanie, and listeners. Thank you so much for tuning into episode 100. And just a big thank you to everyone who has listened to this show, whether you've listened to every episode or a few here and there, or if this is your first time listening to Generation GC. 100 episodes is a huge milestone. I had no idea what I would do with this show when I first came up with it. Had no idea how long it would last, but it's all just really exciting, and it feels really good now. Once again, and as always, my name is Molly Hudelson. I've been your host, as well as the producer, creator, and editor of this podcast. Last time, we talked about Riot Girl from The Young and the Hopeless. On our next episode, we'll be talking about a song from Good Morning Revival. You can follow Generation GC at Generation GC Pod, POD, on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You can also follow me, Molly, at M Hudelson, MHUDELSON, on Twitter and Instagram. Thank you for tuning in. Please make sure to subscribe or follow the show wherever you listen. Please rate, leave a review on Apple Podcasts. It would mean a lot. Most importantly, tell your friends. Spread the word. It's the best way to make the Generation GC fam bigger and better.